I always say that entrepreneurs need to have patience, to be persistent and have the grit. But patient and persistent, it's sometimes you always try to maximize the chances of success. There is the timing. You don't want to make it too late. There is the adaptation. When is the right time? Your maturity of what you want to do or how you position yourself, you need to trust your instincts because there is no one that knows you better than you.
Welcome to the Haggai podcast. Buckle up. This episode is brought to you by Cards Biz, a business card too good to give away. This episode is brought to you by Better Weight for Life, transformational weight loss aid, led by U.S. board-certified physicians, providing access to GLP-1 medications like Wegovy and Zepbound that are proven to help you lose weight and keep it off.
So, Assaf, before we kind of jump into the conversation, why don't you kind of introduce yourself? If people ask, who is Assaf? What do you answer?
Assaf. I have 3 kids. We live in Kiryat Ono in Israel. I go after my passion. I like to build things. AI was something that I was always attracted to since very early. What else? Founder of Vinst, co-founder of Vinst, co-founder of Nanit, my previous company. Moved from sleep to nutrition.
So let me ask you, sorry, what did you say, Assaf? I missed.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell. And so we constantly, and full disclosure, we are investors in Vinst, and I also have a board as an advisory board, and we've known each other for the past few years, and we constantly talk about business and the entrepreneurial process. But I want to ask you with maybe a little philosophical questions. Do you think entrepreneurs are made, or do you think they're born, from your experience?
I think that what?
Entrepreneurs, are they made or are they born? You know, the nature versus environment question.
I just heard a podcast about epigenetics and how we actually can change our life from inside. I think it's both. It's both environmental, it's both genetics, it's kind of a virus that you might have or you want to adopt, and it will happen sometimes. And you can also get it from your
What about you? Your first major venture was Nanit, the world's leading baby monitoring company, which is a huge success and an actual well-known brand name, especially in North America. Do you think that was nature or nurture? I mean, did you have to do it, or was it like a string of accidents that made you found the company?
It's a journey in life. It wasn't also my first venture.
Okay.
You know,
So
I
please.
was trying to sell cans when I was, I don't know, even less than a teenager, and trying to some level of independence and was incentivized maybe to think out of the box, or maybe some of the survival instincts that we got from our parents. It's a combination of many things. People remember Nanit, but Nanit is part of a journey, a long journey that brought you until that point.
So can you tell us more about the journey, and especially what about the cans you were selling?
No, this is just an example. Someone asked me, when was the first time that you thought about? So I was trying to remember, I think I was in 5th grade or something like it, that I kind of went to and bought some cans in kind of a store and sold it in the market. I was going with my kind of, I had a skateboard and I put the kind of the cooler and put the cans inside. The first time that I did it, it was without ice. It was warm because I was so excited about the opportunity to go and sell it that I didn't put it in the refrigerator. But you understand that you can buy it for 1 NIS and sell it for 2. And it was exciting. Now I got also kind of positive feedback also for my surroundings. So I continued doing it as a kid and then moved to my next thing and next thing. So this is about the cans.
That's okay. Just a small anecdote, that was actually my first venture myself in summer camp in the US between 5th and 6th grade. You can only buy soda cans at lunchtime for $1.15 at the cafeteria in the camp. So I went, I borrowed a little money from my parents. I remember it was 25 cents per can. and I sold it for $1.15 off, like my backpack, and I just like went around basically hustling like a drug dealer with Sprite, Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, whatever it was. So it's funny you mentioned that.
These earlier experiences are so important. I remember then in middle school, it was a program together between our school and the bank that we went and invested not real money, but we were compared to this monkey and so how we can make it more and some understanding of what is a company, what our stocks are. Interestingly, it's not the same for home cooking. We should do the same for home cooking.
Yeah.
I think that in elementary school, we should do things about home cooking. But this is the end of the talk, not the beginning.
So how did they? So did you have another major venture before Nanit, or was everything kind of small
I
things
had
like?
a venture that I had during the Technion
Mhm.
that was part of BizTech. We're one of the five finalists. It's an interesting story if you have the time.
Yeah, we do. That's what we're here to hear interesting stories.
I did my PhD at the Technion in computer science, and one of my colleagues that was a postdoc, Roy Levin, he was dealing with navigation systems and routing, and he said, let's do something together. And we have when navigation system is using calling the GPS, it's a lot of power, so we can use the gyro inside the phone that is in semiconductors. It's not. It's almost use no power, and we can save calls if we are in a car driving on the same route, and we see that there are no inertia in any direction, so we don't need to make these calls to the communication. So, it's amazing, like save all this time. And we started to develop an algorithm that in Tau building are going from place to place. We were had like drifting problems. It was interesting to use all this data to estimate where you are. Eventually, we were part of the finalists, the first finalist, and we came to Uwe Levin from Waze. And he said, you have a power outlet in the car. Why do you need it? And we wrote a patent around it and, invested and, there was like a whole program. But it was a lesson. I also, it is a journey. This is what I said. It is a journey. And there were like few others before, but I don't think that it's worth the.
So how did you go from computing motion to save electricity in space and time to Nanit? Like, what was the jump?
First, this idea was initiated by Roy, and I was on the AI side trying to do some learning to do the estimation in the drifts. And it was something on the way. And then it was something that was developed. I would say that if you know, like AI and vision are part of my academic studies and my experience, but in most of the station that I had, it was about process control and diagnosis. I was trying to look into processes as streams of data, high dimensional data, and see how we can early detect issues, problems, and do this process or save lives or save whatever along the way. So in the Air Force and then in the semiconductors and with flowers and textiles and PCB, and then Nanit we build a production line, and we had another textile after that, and also with agriculture, and now with food consumption. Now it's all about looking into measure how we do things and try to make them better through that.
Is there like a universal truth in that? You mentioned so many categories, but is there like an ultimate truth in
There's the commonality for process control is agnostic. Like it's related to everything that we do. Every um, time pass and we do things. This is the process, and whether we control it or not. And it could be how you do shopping. It could do how you find relationship. It could be how you think about things. Like everything is a process.
And do you use that in your day-to-day life, or also in your, or is it only comes, or is it only expressed in work?
Measure everything.
Does your wife know that? Does your
This
wife
is
know that? Is the
Now, in life, I'm not, something very interesting about entrepreneurships and companies in general that you take care of the details of a business much more than you take care of the details of your life. From bank account to health plans to process control for shopping, cleaning. There is something that is different in B2C and B2B. And so you cannot be this type of control freak at home. You need to optimize, and luckily you're the one that makes the decision. And there is no. My parents invested in me until some point, but then I left the nest, and I'm on my own.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think that when it comes to work, measure everything. It's not that you can measure everything. Identifying the critical points that can explain something about the process early on, and try just to measure them at start, even without any optimization mechanism. Just measure, and it is when you build a company. It's not also about measure; it's about processes and then measure. Yeah. Like you build processes all the time. You build processes, how you do your weekly, how you deliver, how you run marketing, editorial. Everything is a process that you need to put into place. And once there is a process, let's measure it.
It's funny as you talk. You're familiar with Peter Drucker?
And no, not that.
So
Doesn't
Peter
come.
Drucker is the OG, the original gangster management consultant. He's like he coined the term the knowledge worker. He imagined the worker that is the information age and things like that. Super interesting guy. A lot of what we hear about model management comes from him, and he has this quote that I kind of came up as you were talking, is like, what gets measured gets managed. And I always thought about it, or I always think about it when I work, because there's two elements to that very simple quote, right? One is like, when you're measuring something, you can manage it, right? But also the decision, what you measure defines what you find yourself managing. That's a fact.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. Just a few weeks ago, we said, okay, let's start to measure how many issues we solve on a weekly, just the velocity. Like, have a report before we start the weekly, just the velocity and like at the beginning, why we should invest, and we have no much time, like this pie chart and what issues are new and what are old, and we drop everything in, you need to be very lean. It's not that I can run and now put a process. But then after a few weeks, you understand how much order it puts it into place and how much predictability. The process of building a venture from start is, you have you learn things with blood, and you, like, whether you put them just because you need to turn down the fire, or whether you are a bit trying to put things ahead of the curve, just look ahead of the curve based on your past experience. And this is a very fine trade-off between how much overhead you are making with, okay, what do we need to measure? We are 5 people, like what? But on the other side, the outcome or the benefits and the seed that you put now as the company grows. And this is always a trade-off that you need to be very practical and how to allocate the resources.
I can relate so much into what you're saying, because it's like, on one hand, you don't want you don't want the complexities and the overhead of a company that has 500 people. But on the other hand, it's like, from my experience, if you don't measure things, then that's just, you wake up a month, 2 months, 3 months, even a year later, and you go, what the fuck? What happened here? Not because you don't care, not because the people don't care, not because people don't work out. It's because you just didn't put a spotlight on something that was important.
I would add in also that once you measure, you are aware.
Yeah.
And it will lead to behavioral change even without doing nothing. Like putting a weight next to your bed, and every morning you put yourself on the weight. Eventually, you will lose weight. And also with cooking, when you cook and you know what you are consuming, what you put inside your mouth, eventually it will change your nutrition over time. So measurement is a basis for behavioral change also in the consumer space, not only in business when we talk about weeklies.
Yeah. And also I think it's a bit, and again, I don't know what your experience, but throughout the years, the more I've done, it's like, and I've been part of more than one company, either myself or as an advisor or as an outside party. And there's this thing about, like, amateurs have amateur habits and professionals have professional habits, right? And it's like if you become a professional business person, a professional entrepreneur, you realize it's just like, no, you just have to do it. It doesn't matter. You're tired. You don't care. It's annoying. You just figure there's some things you just have to do because you're a professional.
You cannot ignore the white elephant, and sometimes you see them only after experiencing, not ignoring them.
Yeah. Like you said, blood. After the lessons are learned in blood. So let's talk about the little lessons. Let's build up to the lessons that we learned in blood. Why don't we talk about Nanit, your previous venture? Tell us a bit, tell us about Nanit. How did it start, and what has it become?
First, it is a journey. Nanit is a baby monitor that uses computer vision and AI to identify baby sleep patterns and parental intervention and give parents tip and recommendation on how to improve sleep, whether through measurement and data and whether through it really triggers like week over week. There are millions of babies across the world that sleep better with Nanit. We manage also to show it in but it's also a research platform with dozens of peer-reviewed journals that help us to expand our knowledge on baby sleep and development. We went through a validation study for the sleep technology. Cornell and Technion were the first investors, which really helped us to build a research foundation for the company and put cameras in Cornell lab and work with various institutes and from early detection of autism to cerebral palsy to drug discovery. Many become kind of the gold standard of how to measure sleep outside of the lab. And this is what the social impact that came out of Nanit that is not less important than babies that sleep at home because it will affect our life. And if you look at Nanit, it's a process control for babies. And this is when I'm rolling back the story. This is how Nanit was founded. I started my career in after leaving my duty at the Air Force. I moved to semiconductors and started to classify defects on silicon wafers with electronics microscopes. I was at the beginning on the microscope team with hardcore image processing, but on the side, I was already inside AI and neural network. It was my bachelor degree and also my master were about using neural networks to classify these defects. So image detection and classification. And when I finished I was at the place for 7 years and I did my master degree during that. And I work on it was through a consortium with between the university and applied materials that the IP that I generated for my thesis was the applied had the right to use it. So when I finished my thesis, I said, sit on the algorithm team and continue to develop it. And eventually they acquired the company and there started to be more people on it. But it was a hell of a journey of building this product and see the business evolve. After 7 years at Applied, I moved to the Technion to dive into AI and vision. My topic was statistical learning theory.
What's that? What's statistical learning theory?
Yeah, you ask a question. I see that I didn't really, but if you are, I was dealing with like images and videos. These are high dimensional instances that you want to classify. So we used method that look at high dimensional data and a lot of data. A lot is eventually video is a sequence of images. So we look into a lot of images and you try to model it. That I was very lucky during my time at Applied that I had Vladimir Stein. Dr. Vladimir Stein he came from the Polytechnic in Moscow, and he worked with Vladimir Vapnik, who is the godfather of statistical learning theory. Okay. And one of the first things that he put when we were sitting, the both of us in the room, he put the book, Statistical Learning Theory. It's the book from Vapnik. Everybody thinks that machine learning started in Bell Labs, but eventually it started with in the Polytechnic in Moscow. and SVM was called there back then General Portrait, and it was the basics for a generalization at high dimensional with linear separators that turn into nonlinear separators at some point. But this was where I started at Applied, and I didn't believe in neural networks after working on it for a while because there was no statistical learning theory that could implement it on neural network. It was so like a big mess of lots of things that moving from side to side that it was a big overfitting that one story lead to another. So stop me if I want. You want 2008, I thought about doing a PhD. I started in 2010 and I met Jan LeCun at NYU because he heard that I worked on neural networks and do my PhD at NYU. And I went to visit him and he was trying to explain me what deep learning is. He put the glasses on, like a kind of device that in real time classify objects. And I was putting it and I said, this guy is crazy. Like this theory that doesn't work, he does it at scale, huge scale. We thought about 3 layers are too much than what we think. And I was moving to radial basic function neural networks and, places where there are like convex optimization that you can do some learning. Eventually, what happened? I was wrong, but it's a fun story. So when I started my PhD, I was going into like practical high dimensional kind of classifications method, and statistical learning theory was my basis. So a lot of theorem around it was what I did during my PhD. But my older son, I have 3, was born during my PhD in 2012. And I said, this crib looks like a chamber. So let's put a camera and do early detection of diseases and disorders and whatever. I even didn't think about a screen. Like I just wanted the data. I remember I was doing my shifts were at night. I'm a night owl. So I was writing my articles during the night and watching I had this setting at home with all the recording. But over time, you understand that sleep is your problem and you start to measure sleep. And I called it IntelliNanny and moved as a postdoc to Cornell University and founded Nanit to what it is today eventually.
But again, explain to us, like, you definitely basically, for all the story, you basically build all the skill sets to make Nanit, like, honestly, to start, like, from a technology point of view. But what was the jump? Like, what was the trigger that say, hey, I have to do,
I knew that I'm going to entrepreneurship before I went to the PhD.
Okay.
Like I always say that entrepreneurs need to have patience, to be persistent and have the grit. But patient and persistent, it's sometimes you always try to maximize the chances of success. There is the timing. You don't want to make it too late. There is the adaptation. When is the right time? And there is your maturity of what you want to do or how you position yourself. You need to trust your instincts because there is no one that knows you better than you, and use the surrounding to consult and get an advice. But eventually I felt that at this stage after Nanit, after my work at Applied, I need to go deeper into AI because once you move to running a company, you're not coding, you're not learning. Like this is like, you move to the next chapter.
You're moving to execution. You're moving to execution.
I'm writing code for 10 years. I look at it from product perspective. Understanding statistical learning theory is something that I believe is missing in the world today. I see how people do engineering today for AI. And the theory works also for neural network, like the non-theory, but the overfitting theory is working for neural networks, and understanding those things can help you to strategize the technology. And today with AI that moves so fast, you hire an AI engineer, you want to know that he will be still, or she will be still relevant in 6 months from now.
Even 3 months, even in 3 months.
So what is the right thing to bring on? And you build a product and you say, okay, in 6 months, what is going to happen? It's going super fast. You need to design your product in a way that you serve on the technology and not trying to be like a Don Quixote and like build models that it's clear that you are going against the technology. So all those skills that I have, like it says, like the 10,000 hours of doing things. are super critical, I think, to run a venture that AI is part of it, a significant part of it. Every venture today, by the way, AI is a significant part of it.
It's like, yes.
Uh,
It's like saying electricity. It's like saying internet. Like saying, it's like, it's just a medium. It's a medium, but you have to be using and expressing.
I love the analog to electricity because when you think about your home today,
Yeah.
and the product that you have with electricity, this product do not exist today when we talk about it in the context of AI. And most of the most efficient products weren't invented yet. Think about the light, and they are still to become. So we are in a very interesting timing today with
It's and again, maybe going back to being a little philosophical, for most of human history, the night we live in the dark, right? For only a short window in human history do we have light, caffeine, and AI in the dark, right?
yeah.
It's like a
And
tiny
an
point.
idol like me can.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So going back to the Nanit story, like what made you decide on a baby monitoring device of all the options?
The idea was not to build the hardware on my own.
Okay.
I took an off-the-shelf camera, and I was in kind of a consumer health aspect, consumer-facing health aspect, and I moved it with this to Cornell. And it wasn't like I joined the Jacobs Institute, which is part Cornell and part Technion. It's part of Cornell Tech. I was a research fellow at Cornell as a postdoc, but was associated with a program within Jacobs that called the Runway, which was a 1 year and with an option to extend it to 2 years, where you they take researchers with PhD and experiences that related to a venture that they want to make out of it and help them to bring it to the market. It was I was on the first cohort for the program, so I didn't really know where I'm going. I was still thinking that I will fix some major reviews in a journal paper that got bumped at the end of my PhD. Until now, it is bumped somewhere. I thought that I will have the time to fix it, but
It's still a work in progress.
entrepreneurship, it's not surprising that
Yeah.
drop out, because you cannot build a startup on the dark side of the moon. Like
Yeah.
it seems to be the whole sun. You go to sleep with it and you wake with it in the morning. Otherwise, it won't work.
But again, what was the trigger? So you took the camera, you took the camera off a shelf, and then what?
And then first I had data.
You have data.
So I started to analyze this data, and I wasn't clueless about entrepreneurship. It was kind of an accelerator. So I was trying to bring financial investors in, and the journey of fundraising is a lot of no. And at the beginning, it's very frustrating. You think that you're going to hear yes, and you hear no, and no, and no, and no, and no. And then at some point, you can like leave it or whatever if you reach the lose of faith moment. But on the other side, this is your way to check the water. Like you get feedback. Every person that you meet is a visitor for the moment. That in many cases, these are high profile individuals that can help you to understand something, but they don't know everything that exists in your head. Especially you are a bit alone in your decision making, but you take what you want to take, you don't take what you don't take. Sometimes you will meet them again, and you continue with this journey. So this is what I did when I arrived to New York. I started to meet people and get feedback. That the initial idea that I came with was pretty crazy, and it didn't really work. But then I started also, by the way, it's not only investors, meet parents. I think there was no parent at Cornell Tech and network that I didn't meet. We were only 30 people when at Cornell Tech back then. It was very small. And now there are 1,000, I don't know more, and they moved to the Roosevelt Island. And back then we were at the Port Authority Google building. I asked them, do you have friends with young kids that I can talk with to understand why they use it? Like design research.
Yeah.
Start to do those things in your market, the US market. And then it turned into
And
to
how long?
understand.
How long was that period of time that you were just like walking around, talking to people and carrying?
I arrived to New York in January 2014 at the end on the weekend of the Super Bowl. It was in New York. It was like a story on its own. I think that the camera was stuck.
No, we're good.
We're good.
Yeah.
And I founded the company in April or May. I forgot the date itself because I didn't want to sign NDAs on my behalf. I want the company. This is the reason that I did the foundation. But we got the first investment beside Cornell and Technion. Cornell Technion put a safe. I got the first check from them. They gave you some budget for mainly for R&D, but whatever we can use it for. And we got some also as a postdoc, you get also some compensation. And at some point, we put another safe and started to raise money from angels. It was in September, I think, the first check that came in. And then my co-founders kind of joined me during this time. And my co-founder in Israel, Tor, my CTO. And then we founded the company. Then we went to seed round in 2014. We didn't really succeed. In 2015, we made our seed round with Mark Suster from Upfront Ventures, the $4 million seed round. And once you have institutional money, it changed a lot about the dynamic and how you work and function.
So to those who don't know, explain what it changes. It's what kind of brave new world is it once you have some institutional money?
I think that the main difference for institutional money, beside the cap table that now have a few more people, is that you bring a financial partner that in most cases took money from others to make money. And it's not about myself as a founder that I'm putting myself or you as an angel that say, I like it and whatever. It's this is your job. Like you need to return. And it created different dynamic in terms of investment thesis, in terms of meeting projections, in terms of presenting, because they need to present the company, the portfolio to their LPs. So we changed the whole dynamic of how the company function. I think that the biggest change are once you start selling, because they might really care about what you do and for you reporting, but they don't really can be there for you. Like they have their job. Yeah. And they can connect you and help you to solve problems using their network. And this is where VCs compared to angel groups or whatever usually are very strong in go-to-market efficiencies, in the talent, in making word to mouth or kind of thinking how to solve problems that you deal with. These are the main differences.
Okay. So let's go back to the story. So you got the first institutional money. You became a teenager in terms of the company.
Yes. Then you start to spend money, too much money too early. I think that most entrepreneurs, first time at least that you get the decision and say, no, it's $4 million in the bank account. I can go
so much money.
Let's do this and do this research and do this study. But this money is so expensive. It is so expensive. You need to understand really how to measure the performance. You need to, because once it's ended, there is a desert between the SAID and the A, and you don't want to reach this point. I reached this point, and but you managed to survive. I managed to make it work, but I think that I could have done better, probably.
I think we all go for it. It's like I will keep out names to protect the innocent and the guilty, but I had this conversation with, actually I had this conversation multiple times. Every once in a while somebody asks to me, should I raise money, like where I am and so on. And you have the conversation, what are you trying to do? Where are you going? But in every day I say, just remember one thing. When you don't have money, you make cheap mistakes. And when you have money, you make expensive mistakes. And that's what...
Today with AI is even, the stakes are even higher.
Yeah.
Of going in the wrong direction with too much money too early.
Yeah, because everybody suddenly has a Maserati in their hands. And the question, do you drive it into a wall or do you drive it down the road really quickly? And it's really hard to know. It's really hard to know.
It's not clear still sometimes that you have a Maserati, but they give you the money to build a Maserati.
Yes. Yeah. So Nanit, it's like clearly a success, and it's continuing to grow even after you left it, and we'll get to that part. But it's a question is like, what do you attribute? Like, why did Nanit become a success? What was the secret sauce or sauces, or what is the element?
The purpose and the vision for the company was something that had a room in this big party of life that people say, it is, we like it, we want to be friends, and we want to talk about it, and it can help us from here and there. There is there are a lot of different type of businesses. I have my own experience. Eventually, for me, and I think in many cases, it starts with a significant problem that you want to solve for you and for others. For you, you are managing it, but solve it for others and the world and kind of do it. Yeah, this is when it lasts for long enough, you understand that you have something. And yet when you formalize it in terms of purpose and vision, and it translates eventually to mission and positioning, and it comes from a really natural place for you in this party with all the team that comes together, because eventually it's a group of people that are doing it, and it starts to be a success. And it's all about the brand. It's a brand development. Purpose and vision are the strategic part of the brand. And I was very lucky. If I need to mention name, is Reen Orgard, that used to be my creative director at Nanit. And she started as an advisor. She worked at Kirky's startup that was in New York. They raised $250 million from Andreessen and bankrupt with Chapter 11.
Wow.
You send them like products, and from as a consumer, if they like it, they give you some royalties or whatever. So hardware, lots of hardware.
Yeah.
And not surprising, but she was their creative director, and she was have a lots of experience in brand. She was in smart design and frog design, and was also part of Oxo and building tools. And when they bankrupt and she was an advisor, she said, Assaf, why don't I join you and we'll build a brand together? And she was with me and walked with me and educated me about design thinking and how important it is to formalize those things correctly. And we did the sourcing for the branding agency. I worked with Athletics that did an amazing job. And here another name in Brooklyn that I strongly recommend. And we also worked with Penza that also I strongly recommend for building our product, our hardware in Dumbo, Brooklyn. This was like the people eventually create the business, and she was there at the right moment, at the right time, next to me to understand the importance of brand. And everything that I said before is the brand. And I think that the Nanit brand is something that is, I think it's number one in baby tech. But it's very strong, how we.
It's known. It's like people, but like there is mind space for the brand.
And it takes time for the brand. Like I think for Facebook, it 10 years. There are parents that are using Nanny. They're like 5 years ago. They still remember Nanny, and over time, the brand. This is how Johnson and Johnson started, right?
So, do you think, like in the early days when the brand was just starting or not that established, do you again, it's a bit of a cliche. Are you selling vitamins? Or are you selling painkillers? Right? That saying. But do you feel that like you had to convince parents, or were they already convinced and then they just want to know if it's a good product? What was that?
I think that every meeting that I had, they said, you're a vitamin. And tell me how you solve SIDS.
You're talking about investors or you're talking about consumers?
I'm talking about both. The purchase decision for a baby monitor is the baby shower.
Yeah.
Like before the baby, when you do the registry. Yeah. So it's like the second trimester. Parents, especially new parents, are thinking only about the next step. Like, let's the baby survive. I passed the first trimester. Now let's start nesting. Okay. And how I come back with I don't know, with a baby at home, with a and what we do and SIDS, the fear from it's terrible. It is terrifying. Yeah. And you don't think about sleep.
You just want to survive. You want to survive.
You want the baby to be alive. You'll do whatever you need. Yeah. And if there is and when we started to raise money for Nanit, there was Olet in the market that started 2 years before us, and they were pitching like, we prevent SIDS. So he said, it's not only that you are not solving the problem that parents are concerned about, you're a vitamin, like people not, but when you are becoming a parent, you understand, and this is something that you learn through design research, that sleep is the number one problem. And after 2, 3 weeks, okay, he's there in the crib, the baby is asleep, and I think that it was a challenge for me, especially when there is a company like Olet in the market that always were like 2 or 3 times the revenue that we are, and say, how many market leaders can be here in like the whole market for baby monitor sales worldwide in 2014 was $400 million. Would you invest as an angel in a market? Maybe as an angel, but a VC. I think that Mark Suster was super amazing that what a bet he made with this investment of Nanit. You cannot imagine. 2014 was very different from lots of failures in hardware. Like people are not doing back then, like all these kind of um, hardware. I also can give you examples of things that we like, where a lot of hardware companies with us that launched. These are different times in terms of funding and investment thesis for these type of companies.
So how did you overcome it? How do you overcome an objection?
There was something very unique in the program and in the team. I think that they invested in the team. And if I would ever move to the dark side, there are a lot of flaws. As an investor, you won't be able to cover all flaws that you jump on a call. Yes, if you have 1, 2, 3 risks, it's a done deal. You won't invest. Not as an angel. As an angel, I can do more than that. But there are flaws. Like you don't know, like you just need to be aware that you won't be able to, in this due diligence, solve all the things. And you back then, believe in computer vision as the future. I think that watching your baby from remote and all the sleep summaries, and this is something that we had. We fake it. We fake everything. We created an app. I created a week, and how tips are doing. Everything was a fake. Like we didn't have the technology. We didn't have the camera. We have some sort of a sleep tracking algorithm that was trained on one baby, or maybe four or five babies that we managed to do it. But I think that also it doesn't really matter what is the size of the market, because if you are thinking it the disruptive way, you are creating something new. So it's not always a problem that the market is 400 millions. And I think that experienced investors like Mark is the general partner for Upfront is running that. So it was for him something that can understand this dynamic and was able to invest.
And so you got institutional money, you got an amazing team, you started building a brand, you started getting the algorithm trained on more than one baby. There's a thing. So like, it's like, so tell us what happened, like remove from adolescence to onwards.
So, eventually you start to, you throw yourself to the water and see what happens. We started to, I remember we brought them back then, a senior executive from diapers.com. And she said, it's $2 conversion it's $0.50 conversion for a diaper. For a camera, it will be $2. So we had an assumption, we built a model like that the acquisition cost will be $2. And then we started, and what we do, so you just need to hack it. You try to work in different directions. Whatever worked for us eventually was ads on Facebook. This was it was really hard to measure the attribution because the sales cycle is a whole trimester, right? But we were managed to see how the numbers eventually were crazy. It cost us $136 per camera, and it cost us $217 the COGS. And we sold the cameras for $300 with $50 discount. So we were kind of stressed, like we couldn't sell more than 25 color cameras a week, but we also didn't sell 25 cameras a week. We launched the campaign, we sold 150 and then zero. We even started to go into magazine in clinics and put their advertising. It was a waste of money. Like you learn the importance of performance. It's so easy to throw these, and we had a lot of money. So when I'm thinking about mistakes, performance marketing is something that you should try in all directions. Yes, but you need to be smart, be efficient. Think about, you don't solve it for startups in the usual way paid. You need to understand the product. You need to understand product growth. You need to understand from your target market, who are the people that were subscribed. It is a combination of many, many things that, as a small team, you need to be smart enough to solve it. And this is the power also of a small team. And it took time until reviews were as such that really help us to sell. Like this interview won't help me to sell Vinst. Okay. Like it will lead to other things that, thought leadership and whatever, you know, this is how you need to think about those things. And then the reviews started to come once the camera was out. And then we had more orders, but on the supply chain, it was so expensive to build a camera that we couldn't sell more than, as I said, 25 cameras a week. And we had a backlog
of orders.
We were supposed to launch in, I think that we can be really proud at Nanit in meeting our roughly deadlines compared to other startups, but we still had deviations. But we were very methodological in terms of how we run the project. We originally planned to launch the product we did the campaign on June, and we said, by the end of September, you will get your camera. And then we didn't have our camera at the end of September. So we tell them, if you want to cancel, great, it will be at the end of December. And no one canceled. And we arrived the end of December, and we managed to build only 500 cameras. And we had few thousand, I don't know what, at least 800. I remember that we had to send them an email. And at this point, we started to send an email on a weekly basis that we explain what we do to deliver them the product. These people already had the baby. Like baby sleep training was not relevant.
Yeah.
For some of them, we even send them a remote just for voice. We bought it for $5 and send them for free. And said them, use it until you have Nanit. So, I already have Nest, okay? But whenever you have the product, bring it. And the first people that, the early evangelists, won't leave their place in line to get the product. Only when we solve these, we move our manufacturing from the US to the East during 2017. This was, and then once we had our new camera, the first product is a piece of shit. I can tell you that all hardware company. But the second product was very good in terms of the BOM and the COGS, and we were able to sell it with some margins. And then we started to scale and build a company.
So looking back, what would you say is kind of your biggest entrepreneurial takeaway? Like if you let's say what?
Move fast, and be agile. You're a boat. This is your advantage and disadvantage. You're very small and everything affects you, every development. So be aware. So be agile, but move fast, because if your team is laser focused and for the purpose and what you want to achieve, and you need kind of born athletes that can do everything. Today with AI, it's even more. Like every person that you bring, you don't manage them. They need to understand what are the KPIs, what are the objectives, and go with it. And we managed to have the patient, persistent, and the grit. And the grit, I think, was very, very strong. We worked with Flextronics in a project called Sketch to Scale. I think there were like 64 or something companies that joined with us. I think that Nanit is the only company that reached the market.
Wow.
And when we talked with them or said, it's the grit, they said, your grit of how to solve it, it's so, we launched the camera and eventually in December, as I said. But we had a problem that the speaker that was in the camera had some side effect on the video signal. and the image was distorted when you were talking to the baby. Solving this type of issue is, if you can replace something, but if you need now to change something in the layout, in the PCB, whatever, it is not 3 months. It is say, okay, remove the speaker, remove the speaker. And we took out the speaker and solve it. This is, a decision of a startup, or, warning that, there are no image sensor. There was an earthquake in Japan. I remember my product manager put a glass of whiskey, said, drink, and then I will tell you. There was an earthquake in Japan. There are no image sensors. What can we do? Okay, let's buy it somewhere else. Let's have the grit. Just where can we find it? And we had a very strong board that really helped us to get access to the people that will tell us what can be done in these situations. This is where VCs can be super, super helpful.
If you have the right ones. It's interesting because I think what people who have not gone through the process of running a business, regardless if it's a startup or even a mini market, neighborhood mini market, right? They don't understand the psychology of the hardships of shit happening and you having to deal with it. Like you said, it's like, if it's COVID or if it's an earthquake in Japan, if it's even you have to change your whole concept. Like you said, we should have a speaker. We must have a speaker. No, we don't need to have a speaker. We have a different product, right? Like all those things that you constantly have to deal with and the psychology of it and the emotional strain even, right? It's significant. It's very significant.
Yeah, there's no one behind you. Yeah. A few months ago, I was 20 hours on a call with Bank of America because of a wire that failed, and there was no one that could help me. Yeah. And I was at 4 a.m. with their cousin. I don't want to hang up because then it is a context switch. Like
you're starting from scratch. You're starting from scratch.
And the day after, another call like this, and you say, I need now to be on this line because I need to have payroll, and if I won't be able to do the wire, it is the reality. I'll put your hand in the shit and do whatever needed. And no matter where we are at the company.
The company is small, you find yourself doing everything from strategy to cleaning the bathroom. Sometimes metaphysically and sometimes actually having to do that, depending on the situation, right? It's like a bit of everything. So why don't you share a bit like where is Nanit now and where are you now? Like as you left Nanit and kind of what kind of your journey that you left Nanit and brought you to Vinst?
Yes, in 2019, we started to meet in the first 2 quarters, our projections for even exceeded projections. And we also launched a new product in Q3 that compete with OLED. OLED decided to move with the camera and said, okay, so now let's do breathing where it was a kind of detect motion. And we felt like we need to bring some sales mentality. And it was a decision with the board, long discussions. I won't go into it, but I brought a senior executive to lead the sales. And at some point, we switched positions where I moved to the chairman position and chief product officer. The concept was there is enough innovation from the board perspective. We need to invest in growth. We have a good product that we can just let's sell. And I agree at that point with that. And I said, if I'll be chairman of the board, I will work on the strategy there and I will execute. And I moved back to Israel. I was then in New York, and I talked with the board that the year after I will move back to Israel, and they were fine with it. And then I kind of in a back seat, I can still do the work and build the things while not being at the front. And we made this transition, and it didn't work. It was a big different in culture, and the founder CEO is like a white elephant. We talk about white elephants, like it is hard, like, okay, what Assaf is thinking. And so I think that at some point I said, I'll do something else. I'll do a spin out. I'll take take $5 million and build the health parts for Nanit, like all the data and the process control. And we were signing a contract with J&J on drug discovery and with HSS on cerebral palsy. And there were already lots of researchers that were using Nanit for their practice. It just worked, and it's working until now. And so the baby market have a seal glass. Like how much we can sell baby monitors, even if we're a market leader. But pediatric, this is huge. Let's do this. And so I managed to convince part of the board, but not the majority. And the CEO that I brought them who said, every dollar goes to growth if you want me to meet projections. And for me, it was clear that there is no room for me now. When I decided to leave in February 2021, we had another round with Google Ventures, and the board was very generous with me and left me as a chairman. I had no executive role, and no one listened to me back then. I feel that I'm not kind of, when you are saying things that people are not going in this direction, especially from where I am for the company, it wasn't constructive. And in New York, I started to cook. Like I told you that I sold cans, but I also work in a fast food chain, from cleaning tables to running the shifts and running it was kind of called Burger Ranch. It's like McDonald's in Israel. And when McDonald's came to Israel, it was a big fight. We had a competition.
Who wins? Yeah.
I experienced that as well, but it was I love kitchen. I understand kitchen. It's not like fine dining, but I like the energy. I have some communication disorder. Okay, so I like it very much. The hyper focus that I can go to. Sometimes it was very challenging when you need to remember what to put in this burger and tell others what to do. So I wasn't very good at that, but it was a challenge. And I like to cook. And when I travel, and I don't like traveling the world because the jet lag, but I compensate myself with learning about the culinary aspect of where I land, and whether it is Taiwan or Europe or California. And by the way, San Francisco is crazy amazing in terms of food from the East. And I love it. And so I had the in-person experience with food in every culture, and understanding the culture in this way.
I mean, as you're talking about it, you're heating up, right? You can hear your passion coming out about your love of food.
I love it. When COVID started, it was in May 2020 in New York, like Armageddon, right? It was crazy. I said, I'm not going to eat this fast food. Like, kids are not at home. I have 3 kids at home running. And I started to put like 2-hour slots on the calendar and started to cook as a process. And I love it. I get to know my kids better, understanding their picky taste and understand what I like and they like. There is a journey of, home cooking, and that we can talk a lot about it. But eventually, the first thing is about the love that you give. You just feel satisfied from what you do. But then, and you start to do some crazy things, but you don't have time. So you did it maybe once or two and show yourself that you can do it. But then you move to 3 ingredients and fast, and time is an essence, but you're also aware of what you do, and you start to think about health and nutrition and what we said before about behavioral change in home cooking. So there are various studies that show that people that cook at home eventually develop better nutrition habits. And it happens for us. And I saw how it is also gives some good memories for my kids, that when they grow up and they will remember the food and the food association. There is sleep association. Yeah. So there's called that. And I started to see on Netflix Mike Pollan and read his book Cooked. And then I bought a book on products in the kitchen. So how a pot was invented, and then it's anthropology and gastronomy, and there is the modern cuisine I saw on TED. So I bought the 5, 6 even books. It was like when I took it to Israel, it was $700. The overweight was another $200. I fell in love in nutrition, and I started to take pictures and videos of myself cooking. And now all the articles on multimodal in AI, like deep learning, was something that started with like 2012 with classifying cats. 2014 with Nanit, it took me time to adopt it because I didn't believe in neural networks. Do you remember that? Yeah. I saw my advisor at the Technion say, segmentation solved with AI better than I said, we need to move forward. And we were part of the deep learning revolution. But then the multimodal that came a few years later was something shocking. You can create like a ways for the kitchen and how you can educate yourself about how to cook. It was overwhelming. I didn't know what to do with the technology and how to tie it as a product. For me, it took me so long to learn the baby market, and the food market is 10% of global economies. When I left Nanit, you wake up the day after and there are no emails.
What is my meaning of life now? What is my purpose? No emails.
And it is shocking.
I can imagine.
It's shocking that you are now. So I said, let's go learn cooking and let's immerse myself in this world. And I went for a year to learn pastry and cooking 4 days a week. Part of the time, I also, for 3 months, also started to work as a cook in a fine dining restaurant. And my experience with Nanit was go to the part in the academia that will teach you how to do this behavioral change and help people cook. And I started to go to the academia and work with the Technion and with their food tech startup. And there was a judge in a competition and understanding. I started to went to food manufacturers. Just is the other side of the and it's amazing how culinary education and food science are so separated. It doesn't exist in domains that I worked in before. I even tried to combine the two. I brought people from Bishulim, is where I learned, to the Technion and do some pilot, because I was bothered that food engineers are designing the food of tomorrow, but go back home and eat cucumbers and cheese. Like, it's not. They need to have some culinary practice. It's pretty shocking how those things are separated. I think that the fact that there is no market leader for such for the largest market in the world is probably part of it. Um, I think that from this year, it was more than a year, that I learned that if there are commonalities around everyone that is in food, are that if you want to make our food system better, like there are some aspects that we want to improve. Like, there is food first. It's a great way to unite people. It's about communication. It's about emotion, love, whatever you cook, and
it's a key part of a tribe. It's a key tribe, like of defining a tribe, right? We tell stories with food. We bring people from. We have memories.
Yes. Second thing is food is medicine. When you think about longevity, when you think about your sleep, when you think about what your body needs, you want to make it better, healthier. Food is also expensive. We want to make it cheaper. We want to have less resources for us to when we cook, and we want to save our planet from just the carbon impact or the cruelty to animals or whatever. Like, we want to make it better. And then you go to the culinary side and you see that people that cook at home, these are the reasons that they cook. They want to show love. They want to be healthier. They want to save money. They want to save the planet. Let's start as to cook and help people cook. And through the data that you aggregate, the process that you create, we will try to measure things and make our food system better. This was like my observation by looking at the food system from different angles without even knowing. So there was like a purpose, improving our food system, and a vision to do it through home cooking and the data that we generate. And many aspects related to everything that I did before Nanit and before the concept. And when I realized those things, I left the board and said, now I need to think about how to start. Chen Fisher, my co-founder at Vinst, he used to be my SVP of R&D at Nanit. I was in New York and he was in Israel and built all the technology. And there is no problem that he cannot solve. And we built computer vision, all the cloud with firmware and hardware and algorithm on the firmware and all the communication and thinking about network, the streaming of video, like how important it is that it will work. So parents have a very low thresholds for not working products. And
Must see my baby now. Must see my baby now.
and we started to go into people's home and saw how they cook to help them. And when you look at people cooking today, it's pretty crazy how technology changed the way that we cook. Like everyone, you go inside the kitchen with your phone. People cook with their phone. It's second to the chef's knife. Like the number one problem in the kitchen is where to put the phone, and they all can ruin them. And then you cook with the browser, the timer, the calculator, GPT, Google Notes. You go out, you have your recipes saved somewhere, you have images, screenshots, threads, WhatsApp threads, email threads, and on social, like you don't need to be next to your family, parents, mom, dad to learn how to cook. It's the social media, the one to many that you learn a lot, and it's pretty crazy. Education and cooking, but when you look at the experience of cooking at home, it is very disjoint. It's all over. Like there is one app for the timer and for the browser, like to turn off the screen, and all the recipes are in different ways. So some you keep on Instagram and some in your notes and some in text. And you don't know how to search. And if you want to add something, a note, or if you take a picture, it gets lost in the camera roll. And it's like Windows 95 fixing the registry. You remember? You go into the registry to add things, and you go and this PowerPoint, and they, for us, writing in Hebrew. Remember? You have to start with the dot. So there will be a dot at the end of the
And then it will
sentence.
crash and not save, and then traumas. Yes, am I getting
And there is
flashbacks?
a brand like Apple did in personal computer, just for a larger market, that will put everything together at the hand of the consumer and say, here is everything, the same language, voice and tone, and the data that we generate from that can be used for crazy things. And we can connect it to your watch and to your blood test and to your sleep and do this type of biofeedback for precision nutrition through AI, and thinking about the culinary education that you can go through that. I think our main business eventually, if you go a few years forward, is education, culinary education. And this is the product that we created today. We have very engaged users. I think that
There's an app. I mean, those who don't know, the app is live both on Google and on the iPhone App Store. It's available for use.
the app itself is free. All the AI tools, everything is free. We said first thing, we want to have a social impact and be in every home, and like WhatsApp for cooking. Like if you want to reach this point, it must be free. So we started with this assumption, and we will need to find a business model that will adjust to that, because this market is so huge that once we'll create some real value, it will go. The second thing, we wanted to have brand awareness. We want that every time that you are cooking or thinking about what to cook, you will see Vinst. The app itself help you to first organize all your recipes. You bring all your recipe from all sources to one location. With AI, we extract the data, provide you with an easy to follow format, but also help you to find these recipes and slice them and categorize them and organize them all in one place, but also in a personal bookshelf when you can have collections, like playlist of recipes that are organized, like you are planning a meal for the next holiday. And one of the strongest use case that we have is collaboration. I have with my family collaboration cookbook that we can have both of us. I send you a recipe, and a week after another, all of them are in one location. I don't need to find them in long threads or whatever. And it's easy way to communicate between us. And when we thought about other things that we can provide, emotional kind of something, that we came with a concept of self-published cookbooks that people can use to preserve their family recipes or give as a present to others. And this is something that you can do for with Vinst today, and it's an optional. You don't need to do it at all, but this is one of the offerings that we are having.
They have to do everything from scratch. So just explain
Yeah,
a little more.
yeah. The experience of creating a cookbooks with Vinst is like you choose recipes that you added, and we compile it for you. All the format. It's not like that album that you need to pick and write. You just bring your recipes in, compile them, usually family recipes. We had like this week an order from a scout youth scout that they did for all their people, like 20 books that they have, and every kid has a recipe. And we are now creating a book for people in the Otef, that are going back home after leaving their home during the war with after October 7th, and having this type of something personal that you create, and
A shared
it's
story,
so
also
great.
shared stories.
Share a
Yeah,
story.
yeah. A
And
shared story. Yeah.
of course, these cookbooks come with this kind of playlist of digital, like there is even a QR code. I don't have a book next to me here. I would show it to you. But, there is a QR code that you can actually bring this playlist into your browser or into the Vinst app, and have all these recipes on your phone as well when you cook.
There's a lot of I'll tell you like a funny story that kind of relates in a weird way. Is this guy, I forgot his name, he invented the demand-based selling, the concept of demand-based selling. And he talks about how he kind of founded that concept. And the first company he worked with and developed this process of selling, it was a company that sold homes to the elderly in the United States. So this was people's last home even, right? Last home. And then they did the design thinking, right? And they would interview people, what made the decisions, what made the decision. And what came back again and again and again and again was the dining room table. Dining room people. That people did not buy their houses till they figured out the dining room table. Because the dining room table was Christmas, Thanksgiving, family dinners, family lunches. That was the story. That was the story. And when I heard about it, I thought about you and Vince. It's like about this is yes, it's not a food, and home cooking is not utilitarian. It's yes, it is, right? We want to eat, right? We want to be healthy. We want to feel good. But it was so many stories and also psychology to the point that those guys, they increased their sales by 30% by saying, we will make sure, like, you don't need to take rid of your dining room table. We're making the building bigger, so you have a place for your dining room table. So it's not a trigger. It's not a dishes blogger. And I don't know, just thought about Vinst as I was reading that book. That's fine.
Yeah, yeah. The intergeneration connection in food is food. Home cooking starts with inspiration. Recipes start with inspirations from our childhood, from flavors, from memories, from bloggers and content creators. Then you bring it to your home and have your creation process. We call it a food story. This is how we call it advanced food story. Recipes, the recipe that you made from something that you find or were inspired from. The connection between parents and their child, like the is very very strong. And I think that when I'm now having kids, I think about how there is the ratatouille effect. The ratatouille effect, it's a term that I got from a researcher at Cornell that sent me a kind of a research around it, that the memories, when we have good memories during eating, then we will like to eat it again in the future.
Yeah.
The memory, the food associations that I talked about before. So family meals are so important, and having this table is so important. When your kids are living home, in many cases, I think that in the US is around five times a year that they meet their siblings in, like, all the family together on average. You need a big table to celebrate the event. It is very much connected to the cookbook that we create, which could be a great gift for such an event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about the big vision, but what do you see, Vince, in the next 12 months? Kind of what are the next steps that you guys you want to hit in the next 12 months?
We want to be your partner for home cooking. Be there, be your partner at home cooking. We try to be very consumer-centric design. When we approach, we look into the pain points along the culinary journey, the cooking journey. Apparently, these are not, by the way, there is a need in finding recipes and exploring recipes, but becoming kind of an like what you put on the product, the feature list, you need to be very details about what should come in and what not, because it is a cognitive overhead if you have too many things. It can become into something very complicated. Look at Nanny today. It's very complicated compared to how it started. Or Facebook, very complicated, but the users are different.
Yep.
They also have, but when you start, so what are the pain points? And we really nailed the critical points where we can be top valuable in organizing, in cooking. We have the preset timers for you. You don't need to go nowhere. You can have this chat. No one need to go nowhere. We're not dealing also with end of the process, like with how to connect it to Walmart, or like our philosophy is even not making money out of it. We want to be your partner to save money even on shopping at the end of the list. But when you look at this pain point, and every, as you said, I measure everything, but also surveys. We have a channel that we get surveys, 30-day surveys, 60-day surveys, 90-day surveys with feature requests and complaint and exit surveys. We have, by the way, after 6, 7, like we have very strong retention. After 3 months, it is 30% retention all the way, because our users really love the product, and they say that they really understand their need, and the design is very minimalist and detailed, and we're going to keep on doing it in the next 12 months. I think that moving to culinary education and the opportunity there around content, new models for content creators for that become educators. Who are the educators today for home cooking? These bloggers or whatever, or food content creators. So how to compensate them with AI? We see now with that, with AI overview and GPT, like it even become a reality. Content, there is no new content in the world. You just need to order it with AI and it will become something. It's really changed. So what we can do about it, because someone is creating this content, so they are educators. So it not really matter what they write or not, but if the person at home see value in connecting with the person behind the recipe, or even it could be Julia Child, then I think that there is an opportunity there to create a really interesting education, a culinary education platform, kind of a Coursera for home cooking, with many like it could be in many directions. I even don't want to jump into the details here, because I can talk a lot, and what will happen is really depends on we're agile, right?
Yeah.
We need to be fast. But vision support, it's also a part of it. We have a strong patent even before. Just one of the first things that we did when we founded the company is also write this patent on vision support for home cooking. I think that education is going to change a lot. Think how you teach yourself how to do things today. You read a professional book. This book can write itself for you and add voice and video, and it can also walk with you to tell you, now do it.
Yeah. The feedback loop.
You are fixing something, you need to ask the device, show it how to fix it, and it will create the video that you will see how to fix it. And in the video, you will see the device itself in your, so I can show you how the steak look in 5 minutes from now when you need to flip it from side to side. So how to integrate these, how to make consumer to adopt this technology with behavioral science. I think this is what we did with Nanit, with sleep training, and what we would like to do today with Vinst in culinary education.
Amazing, and I'm happy to be a small part of that journey. I think I said, like, I want to take the conversation back a bit to the entrepreneur part now, and you kind of alluded to it earlier in our conversation. As somebody who understands the abilities of AI and the importance of integrating AI into your business, like, what are the practical steps of that you're taking now that you're a small team to implement AI early on in your business?
I must say that there is a big difference between a company that born into the AI era compared to a company that need to face reality and restruct, and they need to have a chief of staff that every time raises his hand and said, this with AI, and bringing this expertise to the executive level and making a change in organization. We see today, we see how Google there is internally inside the company and externally inside your products. The offering is changing. And so This is big companies. For small companies, you need to understand strategically the technology. I told you before about making hires, but planning your product, like vision support is great, but when the prices will be manageable and practical for a consumer brand that you will charge subscription of $5-10 a month and it will work. It doesn't exist today. We were part of Meta AI Accelerator. I think that one of the interesting part was to sit with the generative AI engineers and trying to understand they deal a lot with their avatars. Meta are amazing in vision, and Jan LaCun is in Meta. So this is one thing, and it is really hard for me to see an organization that is trying to create an offering that part of it is an AI that don't really understand the technology. You don't need to have statistical learning theory background. It could be just autodidacts learn on its own. Like I'm not saying, but it should be when you are alone as a CEO founder, you need to make decisions. And there is not always someone that can see all the parts as you are. And you don't have the time also because eventually he's not smarter than you in many cases. And so I think that it's important that it's not only about the founder CEO. I think as a team need to be autodidact and born athletes in a way that be able to be very efficient. We talk about 10x productivity, right? 10x productivity AI. So like you are 4 people, are you 40? It's not that 4 people are 40 people. There are some areas that maybe it exists, like in algorithm. Like when you're thinking about what is running now inside Vinst, it's more than 40 engineers working at it. 2 years ago, it's like crazy, all this voice and whatever we can do with AI with just an API call. But marketing, there are even not B2B products that can pack it. And AI is technology. It's electricity. It's not the product. So how to find those shortcuts and how to educate, because not everyone have understanding of the strategy and everything. So how as a company we should ensure that we stay competitive and also take advantage that we started as an AI company and rock it. Like I think that 7 people can do more than 15, and I just heard about it. By the way, I participated in a panel on Thursday on Invest AI that they were talking about it, that productivity is not necessarily correlated to the number of employees. You can have less productivity when you have more employees. So think about to make the hires. And you're thinking about today, like you hire a product person, he need to understand marketing. He needs to understand marketing, like product and marketing, finance and sales. That parts of the organization that people need to do both and sometimes in between.
It's interesting because I think in the last, few decades, it's specialized. But in the age of AI, it's like you need generalists in many ways, right? Or at least a much wider viewpoints, because some of the minute hard work can be done with AI, but you need judgment, and judgment comes from a wider ability to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah. We are at the middle of a storm. It is not that I'm telling you now what to do and tomorrow I will learn new things. You see what Google launched this week, like a week. And it's not only also Claude. And like everyone came out with a big announcement, and you take a look at the models and they work. Like you said, it's and all this content generation from UGC to recipes to videos to all these existing models are breaking into parts within days. So I think that we should be very last week Microsoft. Let's do some organization memory just and start to record the screens of our employees once in a while, so we can use AI and with unstructured way to just so who did this? I see the value for the organization out of it. It's pretty crazy. You can build specs and build roadmap and plans for next year, but actually what they do, they are replacing their employees with operators, with agents that are going to do it over now. It's not that even their intention, but
it's going to happen.
I think that when you think about the new companies, it's not that I'm going to release people. Like everyone will be more productive, will have more ownership, and will be very productive. And I think that we're going to see few years with lots of productivity that is going up. But when you look at the big companies, the top-down approach, how these experiments of Microsoft will evolve over the next, I won't say years, I say few weeks, months, because it doesn't take a lot of data to make a change, or even not. I won't replace you, but I will create the spec for you just by summarizing the meeting that we had on the design brief and the other meeting before, and take all the mails that were in between. And here is a PRD. Take it.
Go.
Yes.
But I think that's like judgment will be much more so important. Judgment is so important, more and more, because everybody has a leverage. Everybody has basically a huge crane now that can move reality, right? And the question, where do you move it to? Like, where do you move reality to? It's like judgment is becoming so important.
We need to, responsible AI. Like today, it's like moving from machine language to Java.
Yeah.
It's good. Like AI will advance technology and make us more efficient, whatever. But technology have also side effects. Look at drugs, medicine. Eventually there was an FDA that said, we not everyone can release drugs to the public, and I think that with AI we will see a similar fact. I think that there will be also kind of the Moore law for AI. Like every 2 years, we double the productivity of our employees, or every two weeks. No, it won't be that fast. Not because of the technology, because of the people.
Because of people, because it still takes time.
You cannot replace all the drivers with taxi drivers with Uber in one day, and you cannot educate the market that use. But now everyone is using GPT for editing and copy, right? So this is something that was adopted. But there are still a lot of ways that we were adopted to electricity, and it took a lot of time.
And even the internet, like I remember, like again, in the days that I had there very early on, and like I remember Mosaic, and I remember the first JPEG I saw downloading, and it took like 5 minutes to download over and you couldn't imagine all the things, right? Because it's again builds upon itself, and it takes time even for you to adapt of what's possible, both as an individual as in society. So it will take time, but probably quicker than it took us to implement electricity. Probably quicker than it took us to implement electricity to some extent.
It is a disruptive technology, and what we see today is exponential growth.
Yes.
And exponential growth have its number. It's some constant that we still don't know what it is, but it will make us grow really, really fast. And for the human mind, it's sometimes hard to grasp. Let's be optimistic and think that we will put our FDA in place sooner than later.
I'll give you my 2 cents as an entrepreneur, not as a society commentary. Because again, I hope this is true, but because I heard it said, and I later asked ChatGPT if what I'm saying is true. You mentioned that we're in a storm, right? You said we're in a storm, and apparently buffalo herds, right? When a storm is coming, they run into it. They don't run away. So when the storm is coming, they start running into the storm because they know if they run away, they're going to be affected by the storm more and more and more. So basically they run into it and they try to run through the storm. So like, that's my analogy. I think as an entrepreneur, you have to suck it up and be like the buffalo herd and run into the storm.
This is the opportunity. The storm is the opportunity. Change it's tectonic changes in how industries work. I think that market that are more fragment, it's even easier to go above the noise level.
Assaf, I think this is a good place to end. So thank you very much for your time and all the stories and all the insights.
It went so fast.
It went so fast. It did. When you're having fun, time flies.
Yes. Thanks for the opportunity. It was a pleasure and fun.
It's a wrap. This Haggai's podcast episode ends here, but you don't. Now, is it crazy to think that you know somebody who'd love this episode? Share it with them, and they'll love you for it.